Started. It being after 6:30, I am going to wait for Deirdre.
Family situation.
Oh, one of
Nice
those.
save.
Yeah, that's a great save. Okay,
Time.
just in time. So, it being 6:30, we'll call the working session of the Planning Board of September 11th to order. Just for the record, our meetings are televised and recorded, and therefore available also later on Chelmsford Telemedia on demand. So, first thing we have is our matrix. Oh, I'm so happy it's bigger. I had a small one with a magnifying glass.
Those who missed it, there's also another side with some
Yeah.
of the cells. I didn't realize it until today.
Okay, so we didn't make a lot of progress on this last time.
I think we left off at 2.6/3.2.
Yeah. So 2.6/3.2, the town should revise its zoning bylaw to accommodate pop-up stores, e-commerce fulfillment centers, and ghost kitchens and dark stores to address shifting markets for brick-and-mortar retail and office space by allowing these uses by right or by special permit in a manner that is not detrimental to the neighborhood as determined by the planning board. So this says not needed. Is that your
Yeah, my initial
editorial?
comment was complete, failed at town meeting to
Okay.
be determined.
I mean, does anyone have any thoughts about whether we should make another crack at this and maybe modify it in a way that would make it more palatable? And do people think that these are objectives that we should, any of them, that we should strive to improve the access for?
I don't think I know what some of these things are.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that came up at town meeting when we talked about it. In fact, just a definition, a lot of it hinged on the definitions of these various uses.
Ghost kitchen?
Yeah, ghost kitchen, just
So
exactly
it's
what
when
it is.
people rent space in a kitchen, usually in a restaurant, or else they have catering out of a kitchen and they deliver, but they don't have a physical.
They're multitasking at the kitchen. I know Bertucci's does something
Right,
like
there's a
that.
couple
Yeah.
different kitchens that
Well,
rent space from
Are,
Bertucci's.
are we having any problem with that, and do we see the potential for any real problems with it? And I think the answer is probably no.
And I don't think we will likely see a
Right.
big influx anymore because things have shifted again from the COVID period
Yeah,
when a lot of this stuff is not
Yeah.
happening anymore.
deliveries and.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say we let it percolate on the way back burner on a low heat, and if the opportunity comes up to open it up again, we can do that. We got bigger fish.
okay.
What's a pop-up?
Evan, do you have a thought on that?
You know, I agree with the board.
Kind of like the holiday.
The market
stores.
never evolved.
Like quick,
Yeah.
bam, get out,
Okay,
I think.
everyone in accord? And Mike Walsh, for the record, is on Zoom. 2.
Hi, everyone. How you doing?
Good, and yourself?
Great.
2.7, determine whether the affordability requirement within the inclusionary housing bylaw should be modified. Now that, well, that's null and void, since we have not any longer achieved our 10%. But, I mean, I guess, does the affordability requirement need to be looked at anyway?
And this is something that's permanently on the radar, I think.
So, in the inclusionary housing bylaw, it has to, the affordability requirement is,
It mirrors 40B,
Yeah.
which is very high for inclusionary bylaws. Suburban communities.
Is
it's
it 20?
between- It's 20 for ownership and 25 for rental.
okay,
So that, that kind of served its purpose when we were aggressively trying to reach 10%, primarily with 104 Turnpike. local
yeah.
approval. This will likely come up as part of the housing production plan. I think it's worth revisiting that and benchmark Chelmsford to other comparable communities.
And do we know what the benchmark, what the other communities are?
Yeah, generally speaking, suburban communities are between, 10 and 12, 15%.
Okay. And is there any mandate in terms of the AMI?
That can be customized.
But
which
what
would-
is there, there's
Our
no
bylaw requires 50% AMI,
60?
50. So it's
50.
on the lower end to provide truly affordable housing.
And what's standard in other communities, similar communities, do you know?
It started at 80%.
Yeah,
It went
which
to
isn't very
60.
affordable.
Yeah, so I think most newer inclusionary bylaws are at 50%.
50%, okay. I mean, I would think that it might be worth looking at doing 20 and 20. I don't think I'd want to go down to 12 or 15% because we need the units and we need the affordable housing.
I don't think we should change it at all,
Okay.
No,
because
no.
we ended up going below, even with
Yeah,
where
because
it's
of
at.
Ty-
Well, I mean,
we're
it
not
might be
addressing
that projects
Tylo,
don't get
though.
built
We're not
because
addressing Tylo
the-
in this at all.
because, and so we don't get any affordable units because they don't build under the inclusionary
Right.
bylaw.
This is why I suggest you take a look at it.
Right,
If you're gonna revisit the overlays, I would do it kind of in coordination.
Yeah.
And then it's directly tied to what the town's priorities are. Are you trying to encourage affordable housing? Are you trying to encourage any housing? So I think that really ties directly back to the, revisiting the overlays and what's the strategic goals of those overlays. If
I
you're
mean-
gonna de-emphasize housing production in a medium to large scale, like a 40B, then the numbers should come down. If you're promoting small-scale, village-style housing with low density, then obviously the numbers would need to come down as well to accommodate the.
which is where I'm coming from. I think that
Yeah,
to the extent that we want housing, I mean, I think we want some housing.
yeah, it's,
I'd
that,
prefer
that
village
recommendation
style.
really shouldn't be viewed in isolation.
Right,
It has a direct impact on the financial feasibility of the project. And so again,
Right.
whatever you're trying to promote and incentivize, the inclusionary should be strategically aligned with that.
I was reading something, and I was in Portland last week, and I was reading something, they had got into place, house, requirement for affordability, I think it was 25% several years ago, and there's been zero development in whatever that zone was since. No projects.
Yeah, I mean, in and of itself, it usually isn't a deal breaker, but in combination with other regulations, it can make projects uneconomical.
Or high interest rates.
So
What's
let-
that?
Like, we just don't have the infrastructure right now. Like, it's not that I don't want housing, like, necessarily. I want it strategic. And
Right.
I understand what you're saying, village. But I don't even think we have the bandwidth or the infrastructure to any incremental housing.
which is my point. If-
Like,
if
we
the-
don't have the schools for it.
If the
we don't
board
have the
determines
sewer
that we
for it.
don't want to promote housing anymore, well, then the inclusionary kind of begins to, you downzone your housing opportunities.
Right,
And at that point, the zoning makes it clear we're not trying to promote or incentivize housing, and then the inclusionary can be adjusted accordingly.
Like, I like to, because I mean, even for a new school, it'll take another 10 years before a school goes live. Like, I like for the short term, maybe we decentivize the housing. I mean, we've done our part, like, for building out Chelmsford. I got to see some of these other towns, come up to the plate and do what we've done.
yeah, okay. So we'll say, let's call that, ongoing.
Paused.
The planning board should review the goals and objectives of overlay districts and inclusionary, this I think we need to do, and, maybe we should pick one of the inclusionary zones and go over the, we haven't done it. This says every 2 years. When was it last done, Evan?
By the board, it's been a number of years, well beyond 2 years. The master plan presumably reviewed this and recommended, trends continued, but the board itself hasn't done a deep dive or
So
revisitation.
let's put this on our list of things to,
Did we start a SEOD discussion?
I'm sorry,
I thought we started a SEOD discussion and then did that get tabled?
on the inclusionary housing zoning bylaw,
No, just on the COID.
on the COID, yeah.
I think we
Wasn't
began
that
it,
earlier this year?
we began it, but
Yeah.
it was very, very preliminary.
Okay.
It was actually last year,
Last year.
in September.
Yikes. Okay, right.
It was a year.
Yes.
I do think the COID also, got glass, we need to circle back around to that. So maybe we should put this on for this and in conjunction with the COID into a work session sometime in the fall. Continue to implement the adopted procedures and processes for expedited permitting to ensure that permitting decisions for industrial, commercial, and mixed-use applications are acted on within the state's 180-day guidelines. Update the Chelmsford Business and Permitting Guide as needed in accordance with the new industries being created as a result of COVID.
Do we have a problem here?
No, I think that second sentence can probably be deleted.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's, we should continue to implement the adopted procedures. So that's ongoing. Require bike racks and sidewalks for new commercial and industrial development projects where appropriate. I feel like that's something we've been
We've essentially,
attending to.
yeah, I don't think we're missing the boat there.
So I'd say that's ongoing, and it's in our plan reviews as this states.
I mean, we have the BPAC. If BPAC decides that we have an issue, they can certainly tap us on the shoulder and we can look at it.
I think that's the same case for all of those 4.16s.
Require developers to provide sidewalks and amenities, lighting, bicycle parking, benches, encourage traffic calming. I feel like we do all this. Provide bicycle and pedestrian accommodations on new and reconstructed local roads. Well, that's not really, we do, I guess.
Striping, basically, more than anything else.
Require bike lanes and shared use paths. I don't think this is necessarily planning board business, some of it.
Well,
You're doing
It
it
would
all
be.
as needed and as appropriate.
Yeah. Limiting curb cuts, requiring landscaping plans. Sorry. Ugh. Update the parking requirements within the town zoning bylaw to be consistent with current industry standards. I think that's something that we should put on our agenda as a workshop item in the near term instead of the long term. I don't know that I always think about adjacent internal bike and pedestrian site circulation and connectivity, but I guess we should try more. I'm trying to think of where that has, we didn't really talk about it with Meeting House Road, and that would have been a one that it might have been appropriate to implement connectivity with.
We don't have a lot of bike lanes in town.
No, this is internal. I was looking at
Well, I-
16.8, the last one. or the,
I recall having, actually from one of the master plan meetings, having had the DPW in there, which kind of maintains a lot of plans for what they're doing with sidewalks and this and that. And it apparently is on their radar to some degree. It's kind of an opportunistic thing. If you have an opportunity to increase connectivity, you try to do it. And I think we're actually addressing it where that comes up. I don't think we've missed a lot of opportunities that have presented themselves. Although Meeting House might be an example.
I mean, also, I feel like the town parking lot in the center didn't have much consideration of those issues when we approved that.
Yeah, but
Well,
we could
we
always.
discussed how cars were gonna be turning in there with the pedestrians and how we were concerned.
Yeah.
I
But
think we
there's
talked, we touched
not really a
on it.
plan in place that addresses those issues.
No, but we were touching on it on that site plan review.
Increase the developer contribution requirements. Didn't we do that?
We did do that.
Done.
Yeah, what's our 53G standard now?
200 for
200?
vehicles.
It used to be, what, 100 or
100.
something?
And then you adopted a new truck
Yeah.
payment.
Yeah, we discussed that when we discussed that thing up
Yep.
by Market Basket, across from Market Basket.
Okay, continue the implementation of the COI zoning bylaw, the Center Village zoning overlay, and 129 BAOD bylaw and inclusionary housing bylaw.
Isn't this
We-
a duplicate? We
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
covered
this
a
is-
lot of it
yeah.
up above.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, continued implementation, I don't see, the continued implementation things, I think,
No, it's implemented.
well,
Maybe
and we
changes,
are
but it's
continuing to implement them. I mean, I guess, yeah.
What we do for a living.
If the applicant brings it.
Yeah.
The town subdivision regulations should be modified to allow and encourage the use of low-impact development. That already happened by the, bringing us up to the mass standards, correct?
Yeah. I think
The
we-
low-impact development, so
Correct.
that's, we cross that off?
Yes,
That's the thing that Christina
right.
Yep.
brought to town meeting? Okay. Related to,
I think that's all.
Done.
what's
Pretty
that?
much it, huh?
That's it?
That's it? Okay.
Well, the Master Plan Implementation Committee thanks you.
I'll update this, recirculate it back to the board, and then proceed with scheduling a master plan implementation committee. Several members should attend, so you can kind of engage on behalf of the planning board with the committee if they have any questions. But I'll let you know when the date is.
Okay. All right, so it's not yet 7 o'clock, so we will not yet start public input. Should we maybe look at the minutes?
Move to accept.
Anyone have any thing on the minutes? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Mike is an aye on the Zoom call, so it's unanimous. Our next meeting date is September 25th and October 9th. What about, anyone have any liaison updates?
Yes, so I attended the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on September 5th, and there were a number of people in attendance. The most actively talked about topic was a 40B development proposed on Morose Ave. It's called Cobblestone Place. It proposes to construct 5 rental units, and it's just over an acre site. So, the proponents discussed their their vision for the project. A number of abutters were also in attendance and discussed their concerns, and that was really, the majority of the meeting was spent on that, so that was a hot topic.
So, it's rentals, so one would be affordable, but all five would count towards
Yes, they
this?
said all five, because it's rentals, all five would count towards the
Every bit
housing
helps.
inventory.
Okay. Anyone else?
I attended the Board of Health
Oh, good.
meeting that was Monday, and some big changes potentially are coming. They're considering going onto Zoom live stream and
That'd be great.
so, but they're still considering that.
'Cause they have to change their day, right?
Yes, they would have to change their day, and so that's one of the things they were discussing. And then
Well, that's interesting.
need to
Why
cut
would they
back.
have to change their day? Is that conflict with something
Have
else?
to move here.
Select
yeah,
board.
I believe it does.
Ah, okay, yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. So they may end up either on I think it was either a Wednesday or Thursday.
I think it was not
first-
Wednesday or
first or
Thursday, 'cause Eric can't do.
Yeah, there was some debates about who could make what and that sort of thing. That's what they still need to resolve. And the other thing too is they moved their public input into the beginning of their meeting. It used to be at the end. And then also a couple of different things that they were handling as far as input and output correspondence. Their output correspondence, they did notify the landowner at 10 Hildreth of the PFAS findings so that he would take appropriate action according to the MCP.
So
And,
that starts a clock for him having to respond within a
yes,
certain
yes.
duration.
Yeah, and then also, there were two things that they voted on their open hearing in the meeting before this past meeting for the applicant to provide, and those are still outstanding, and so once those are known, when they can be made available, then they'll post a meeting to have another hearing.
What were the two
for-
things?
One of them, I think, had to do with the fact that their peer review for the Phase 1 review was that there was additional information that was being requested. And I think in particular, he was looking to have them identify where some of these different areas potentially are that could
They
have
do more
contaminants.
foresights?
I don't know what all of the details are, but I know that's one of the considerations. And I think, I don't remember what the other one was, because that was well, actually, John was there and Chris was there, so maybe you guys remember. But
I wasn't
at the
there.
hearing, I thought you were there. Anyway.
I wanted to be, but I couldn't make it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so they're.
Is it short?
It was short this week.
Because I came from another meeting and.
45
all
minutes.
closed up.
Yeah, it was 45 minutes. Yeah, I'm just anticipating what this will look like on live stream when they're just turning pages.
Well,
and
maybe,
stuff,
I mean,
so,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
anyway. But there was I think also too, it's worth mentioning that, I think it's fair to say that Richard Day, who is the chair, again, was expressing his general concern about the fact that because of the sewer limit, that applicants increasingly are looking at options of septic. And since the original intent of going on sewer was to prevent that from happening for the purpose of water quality, he certainly expressed significant concerns about the fact that that's potentially what's going to be happening now. Is that more and more, there'll be more and more septic in the town, and is that going to create issues with regards to water quality? So I thought that was an interesting thing. And anticipating the public input at the end, I didn't have a chance actually to provide public input. But one of the things I was going to ask them was, in the cases where, for example, you're concerned about potential, proximity to water quality source wells and things like that, is there a way in which the town could provide some waiver or something like that to allow people to be on sewer in those cases for the purpose of public health? So I didn't get a chance to raise that question, so I may raise that question at the next meeting.
Next time.
Yeah.
And that's once a month,
Follow
right?
up to Joel's, the DPW wastewater restriction regulation does have that provision,
Okay.
that the Board of Health would have to vote and deem it a public health crisis or emergency a threat, and then the DPW could consider granting a waiver to
Okay.
allow the connection.
Okay, is Donna aware of that? Do you know?
I don't know. As part of the Morose 40B, we're having an internal meeting to review all of these so that everyone has a better understanding. So that meeting's on Friday, so she will be aware if she's not already.
Okay, okay. I'll check so that by the next meeting, if she hasn't heard, then I'll mention it to the board, and in that way, they can be aware to look into it and see what possible actions they can take in those cases.
Has there been any action whatsoever on the overall sewer situation? And I don't mean local action, really, I mean state action. I've heard nothing.
Not state. Christine Clancy gave an update this past Monday at the Select Board.
Okay. I should have
That
listened.
happens fairly routinely. There's a variety of action items going on. At the long-term effort is to begin looking into MWRA connection. And I think there's $30,000 allocated to do a high-level study of that. But immediately and short-term, the board knows the town has, through DPW, has the I&I program. And Christine Clancy mentioned Monday that every week they find manholes in town. When they pop the lid, they look to see what level of inflow there is. And just last week, they found 4, and they were averaging between 3 to 8 gallons per minute. And so they go in and seal them up, and then they catalog all this, and apparently the state allows the towns to take 50% credit, not 100% credit. So as you can see, incrementally, as the town goes in and revisits its systems, it's incrementally and systematically plugging up, I&I, and that gallon saved is then cataloged for available capacity. So the last couple of years, through the planning board, we've averaged, I think it's about 18 to 20,000 gallons of new capacity. And the I&I program has kind of kept pace with that. So, if trends continue and, there isn't any significant major changes to zoning or market demand, recent historical trends, we should be okay.
All right. Now, you gotta think that that's really where the biggest bang for the buck is. Cutting the flow. Well,
Big bang for the buck for
yeah,
who?
I mean, we can try to get the state to do something. That's probably impossible at this point.
Well, even the MWRA, which,
Yeah.
maybe within the town's control, would be very, very expensive.
Right.
And then there's still, as part of the strategic plan, which meeting is next Wednesday at 5:30, 6 PM, it starts at the Elks. The town still needs to have a high-level discussion as to, how much more, and if so, of what.
Evan, related to the strategic plan, the Conservation Commission met yesterday, and in addition to the individual responses that he encouraged people to give to that, they also suggested maybe a board response.
Interesting.
That's a
And
good
so
idea.
they encouraged, from your own individual perspective, feel free to submit to the questionnaire. But they also said that if board members want to submit to the chair can compile it, and I guess the Concom chair will be interviewed by the strategic plan group, and so he was going to give that summary to the group.
So just as a reminder, each of you should have received an email from town manager. You're invited to do individual interviews or group interviews if you wanted to. As far as a group providing input to strategic plan, that would be great. I don't know to what extent you'd be able to do that, because you haven't had a group discussion. But whether you do it individually or as a group, it's critically important for planning board to engage in the strategic plan.
Can I make a recommendation that we all submit individually from our own perspective and then send, I mean, I'd be willing to compile
Collate
it.
them.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be commonalities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
compile it for everyone from a planning board perspective, from a full board perspective. I can compile it, and then we can submit it as a board.
Yeah, that would be a great help to the committee, I can tell you that.
Yeah, if there's any disagreement, we can bring it up at a meeting and discuss it briefly.
Yeah.
To get a little bit more of a consensus, but I think that there'll be enough commonalities to put a position forward
Yeah,
as
and
a
you know,
board.
consensus isn't particularly important for this
Yeah.
data.
But if we have the individual opinions
Right.
and then the consensus from the board, it might be a good perspective.
All right, it being 7 o'clock, after 7 o'clock, actually, I'm going to call the regular meeting to order of the planning board for September 11th. Again, all these meetings are televised and available on demand, and recorded. And if the recording should go down, we will do our best, but we will not suspend the meeting. Next up, we have public input session. Anyone who wants to speak on a matter that's not currently the subject of a pending public hearing is welcome to come to the podium and introduce yourself with your name and address and speak about matters that do pertain and are under our jurisdiction.
Nobody on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
Seeing no one, next up we have administrative review of 40 Grandview Road, request for certificate of lot release.
I believe Mr. Chris Salter is on Zoom with us.
Yes, I am.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Do you want to make a presentation, short presentation to us?
Well, yes, this property was currently sold, and as a condition of the sale going through, the current owners left a substantial amount of money in escrow with the closing attorney. One of the items that we needed to clear up was to have a Form G certificate of release approved and signed by the board, so we can have that recorded. I think when I submitted the Form G to the planning board, I also included a copy of the Form E covenant that's it. That was on record. Unfortunately, we don't know much about this. Nancy Finnegan was a previous owner of the property that sold the property to the people who just sold it, but they bought it back in 2006. So this Form E covenant has been on record for over 30 years, and we're not quite sure what to do with it other than to have it released.
So that's a really good summary. Dates back to 1993. Obviously, this definitive subdivision file is completely closed out as far as the town is concerned. Chris, remind me which lot is 40 Grandview?
It was not. It was 1 second.
Was it
It was lot number one.
lot number one?
On a plan, although certain there have been certain additions to that lot over the years, but on the original deed, it was listed as lot number one.
Okay, so this you've seen these before. It's fairly routine. There's nothing really for the board to do, other than as the attorney's indicating, in order for closing attorneys to sign off on the closing. Rightfully so, they want the title to be cleaned of this covenant. What is interesting about 40 Grandview is that while it was shown on the definitive subdivision plan, it doesn't actually have any frontage or access from Birchwood. But for some reason, it was shown likely as a lot to be created via the definitive subdivision. So I brought that to the attention of the attorneys, saying that, you know, it may not even have been part of the covenant. But they, you know, for purposes of belts and suspenders, they are requesting that the board vote to release Lot 1, which is 40 Grandview.
And is there any, as you see it, downside of us releasing it?
No, like I said, I mean, the project
It's a beautiful house.
has been, you know, the project's closed, the town does not have any outstanding issues. If the board chooses to vote to release, I will need either the chair or vice chair to come into town hall within the next couple of days. This needs to be notarized in person.
I could do that Friday.
Okay. So looking for a vote from the board to release, I think it's Lot 1, 40 Grandview, from the covenant.
I'll take a motion.
I will move. Oh, you go ahead.
I move to release 40 Grandview, which is Lot 1, from the covenant.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, Chris, the chair's likely going to come in on Friday, so that
Okay.
can be ready for pickup on Friday.
Okay,
Okay.
that'll be perfect. Thank you very much.
Just for the record, Mike, you also were in accordance with that, Mike Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So it was unanimous. All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Next up, we have 300 Billrica Road, seeking COID applicability for Beehive.
While they're setting up this, just for clarity, that's Route 129
Yeah.
/ COID applicability. Yeah, you can move it any way you want.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Ferris. I'm the CEO with Beehive, and I'm here tonight with my colleague, the Director of Operations, Ariella Thornton, and two of my colleagues from our affiliate company, George Bannon and Brian Charville. And I wanted to start tonight's meeting by thanking both Paul and Evan for their helpful meetings with our entire team over the summer. We had several meetings with them, and they were really helpful ahead of this meeting. And we wanted to just come in tonight and give you a quick introduction, Madam Chair, of who we are and where we're from, and a little background about the project and the historical property of 300 Billrica Road that historically started out, I think, was initially built for Apollo Computer back in the day as a flex building that eventually became a single-tenant office building conversion in which Kronos was the last tenant to occupy. I think they left in around 2016. The property's seen a precipitous drop in value from 2023. I think its assessed value is roughly $12 million. It's now about $6 million. We purchased the asset from RMR that owns the neighboring property, which has the Press Cafe, which everybody loves. And so we purchased it for about $4.5 million. It's a 110,000 square foot building with 55,000 square foot footprints, which attracted us from Beehive. And maybe I could just share with you a little bit about our concept and what beehivepros.com is all about. What we're really doing is modernizing the trade industry and consolidating multiple trades in plumbing, heating, electric. If you think of like 25 years ago, before there was Home Depot, you went to a lumber yard, you went to a paint store like Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore, you went to your hardware store to get keys. What Beehive is really a central location for a lot of professional trades that both work directly for our company, but are also small independent contractors from the local community that we can partner with when and if our demand levels are high. And so what we really designed with this building is indoor contractor shops, roughly 33 shops that range in size from the small size, about 300 square feet, to the large size would be about 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. The first floor has shared amenities like conference rooms that some of these people may need to meet with their clients, you know, an independent HVAC company, an independent electrical company, to be able to meet with members of the community. And then on the second floor, we're proposing 35 workforce housing apartments to rent both to our employees and potentially tenants in the building, and to people who are not necessarily tenants in the building, but workforce housing for local trades, men and women who've gotten out of school and looking for affordable places to live that may also work for our direct enterprise Beehive Pros. We have a membership model. It's very simple, $100 a year, $500 a year is our residential members, and you get different discounts and benefits and free services annually with those memberships for residents. We have a very strong commercial presence where we work with a lot of large companies where we perform preventative maintenance and other services. Those memberships are simple. It's $1,000 a year, but it comes with certain response times and waived fees, et cetera. And really what we are is just a centralized model, so people can have one relationship in one point of contact with a relationship representative of beehivepros.com, where they know they're getting the same professional level of service for various services in the community. I think that some of the benefits that I think this may bring to the community beyond the affordable housing component is it really provides a launch pad that's very affordable for people to locate their business. So 33, in theory, if we use 1 to 2 of those indoor contractor shops, the rest would be available to third parties, presumably partners that we would work with in some cases, depending on reputation, experience, et cetera. But it really provides those businesses a place to centrally locate. And the thing that I think we will see in this particular location is a migration from people who might be using their home or their garage as their shop and moving their van or their equipment to this location and taking a small, affordable space that they can work out of and operate their business. So we have things like a centralized mail room, centralized conference rooms, centralized laundry, and places for uniforms to be cleaned, et cetera. This is our second location. We have a location in Southborough that we started the concept with, and the first floor was really focused around these contractor spaces, and the second and third floor were really self-storage spaces. And what we found was the contractor indoor spaces leased before we were open within days of listing them, and we really found there's a really underserved segment of the market for this type of product for young contractors and businesses. And what we also have found in the challenging economy where we have full employment right now, it's very hard for us to add young professionals, and particularly seasoned one with experience. And so we think adding this housing component will allow a lot of men and women who will be assigned a vehicle. They're coming back to their effective place where they work, but they also have a very low-cost housing that would be directly above it. This is really just a reutilization of an old, tired, single-use office asset, which there's a lot of in the community. And we think it's really a pioneering way to reutilize an existing asset and really take advantage of a lot of what office buildings have. Offices have, in many cases, too wide a footprint for housing. So what we've done is thoughtfully design the residential component to have common area spaces where people can meet and in the evenings after work, and those would be in the core of the building, which otherwise would be too deep for residential housing, and then putting apartments. And the way we looked at this was 35 apartments, there'd be 31 bedrooms and 5 two-bedrooms. We've thought about, and we haven't looked at the total legal implications of age restricting it to sort of over 18 or over 21, depending on what the what would be appropriate. But effectively, it breaks down to 9 affordable units based under your zoning code. So with that, I'd like to open it up maybe for questions.
You said you have a facility in Southborough?
Southborough, yes.
How long have you been in business?
We just started, we opened in January.
How long has your company been in business?
January.
Of this year?
Yes, yep,
So Beehive has been since January of this year?
correct, yep.
Okay.
And we're growing at 67% a month since January. We started with $318 of revenue in January. So if you compound that at 67%, it grows very, very quickly. Yeah,
And you're an LLC?
correct, yes.
So your Southborough facility has storage, the workspace,
Correct.
and residential.
It does not have the residential component, yeah.
An adjunctive feature.
And who are your investors? Because obviously this is going to be a lot of capital.
Yeah, we're self-funded. I'm sorry, I should introduce myself. I'm David Ferris, who owns several other businesses, and the most recent one that we divested was a $1 billion investment RIA in Southborough. We served 150 ultra-high net worth families in Boston, New York, Palo Alto, London, and sold it to the largest independent planning company in the country, Creative Planning. And so this is a self-funded, singular-owned enterprise that's funded by us. And we think that we own several different businesses, and I would tell this board, I have never been affiliated with a company that's growing this quickly in terms of the demand for the services that we're, and the problems we're solving for the communities that we're in. So it's frankly the most exciting one I've been involved with.
I'm sorry, what was the business of the billion-dollar enterprise that you were
It was
describing?
a investment firm, so we were, a family office that managed wealth for a lot of high net worth
Okay,
families
got it.
in Massachusetts. We're about half of our practice, and then elsewhere around the country.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you have any data that supports the attachment of the residential with the shops?
We
and
don't.
the
This is
success?
really our first location with the apartments, but we just know from our sort of 30 tradesmen that we have now working with us how hard it is for them to find affordable apartments in communities. And we think with our basis being as low as it is, which, this asset was bought for about $45 a foot, somewhere around there. We can still make it a very good returning investment, even with the large affordability component you guys just discussed before the meeting started. Yeah.
So what affordability would you be proposing for this?
Well, these would be rental units, not sale, and it would be what your statute calls for.
50% AMI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they would all be affordable?
They wouldn't. There'd be a percentage.
Nine mathematically would need to
Okay.
be deed
Yep.
restricted affordable.
Yes.
If it's a rental project, then all 35 would count.
Right.
Yeah.
But the real idea behind this is to really build workforce housing. I mean, I don't think there'll be a lot of people that want to be necessarily above an electrical HVAC store, other than guys who are sort of recently in the trades that, all work and live together and, get along. And so we've tried to build some amenities into the second floor that would make it a really cool space to live in and, begin your career.
What about the rest of the property? What do you have planned for amenities outside?
Yeah, we haven't really planned a lot of amenities outdoors at this point.
Pool? No.
No, nothing like that. Only because there's.
Basketball courts?
Yeah, we're trying to. Yeah, we would do something like that, but we're trying to minimize any ground disturbance given the issues with the
Oh, yep.
properties across
Next
the
door.
street. Yeah,
So
so
you're not thinking about tearing down? Like,
no,
you're
we're
not
gonna
we're
we would keep
Same-
the existing
Same
building.
footprint.
Same
Yeah,
footprint.
the big changes to the building, and we're hoping to get in to see you a couple weeks earlier, but we
bays.
just went in there and sort of cleaned up some of the shrubbery and just painted the building our colors. But we had pulled the building permit months ago to do the interior demo just to get it ready. But the big differences you would see with the building is it'll look and feel a little bit more industrial than an office, and it would mimic something that you would see in our Southborough location, and I'd welcome anybody to go by. I will say this, I'm very proud of that location. It's very clean. It's very well kept, and ironically, if I sit in a bar anywhere in that general area and meet someone and they ask what I do, I could tell them about the Ferris Capital business, and they'd never have any idea. And I'd mention Beehive, and everyone says, "Oh, that's that beautiful new facility in Southborough." So it really came out nice, I think, relative to the feedback we get. And we have some renditions. Ariella, you could maybe bring up the boards and. Oh yeah. So this is kind of a proposal of what the building would change in terms of look, except the color scheme is pretty close to our existing facility in Southborough, and this is kind of a layout, and this shows you our Southborough location now. And this was, again, another pretty tired vacant office building that was, I don't know, vacant for 9 to 10 years. And it was sort of 55,000 square feet. And what we found is all these indoor contractor shops on the first floor, they leased before we even opened. And we're already 50% leased with the remainder, but what we're finding is a lot of the tenants in the second and third floor are they're like cleaning facilities or cleaning companies or small businesses that, so what we offer beyond just the common area spaces is we offer direct delivery for products. So a lot of these businesses that need to inventory their extra product, their cleaning supplies, a lot of cleaning companies have it direct ship, will pallet deliver it to their unit. And for the cost of like a storage facility price with a delivery fee, they're still saving a tremendous amount of money. And then it has all like this facility has very high powered Wi-Fi. So, someone can go in there and they're not sort of tethered to setting up their own ISP and all their, data connections and whatnot. And what we've done in the design with this reutilization for this first floor is we've set it up so some of these shops would have already the existing reuse of the office space. So we demoed most of the space, and you're all welcome to go there. We could email you the code to the building anytime if you want to walk in and tour it. But we kept a lot of the offices that could be reused in each trade shop.
In the business model, is they actually would be part of your company's workforce, is that it?
I would say some. I wouldn't want to overstate or overpromise that, but some would definitely be the case. So our goal with this location would be to cover sort of southern New Hampshire, northern Mass. So we have
facilities maintenance, is that your
exactly
business?
So if you go to our website, you'll see our pricing model and how we offer services, but it's very transparent. Most services are either if you're not a member, $85 an hour. If you're a member, or for a lot of services like residential, electrical, carpentry. If you're a member and you're sort of a $500 a year member, you don't pay any visit fee. So a lot of members who sign up for us that are going to use us multiple times a year, they might use us for various services, carpentry, fixing. I mean, what's incredible is having only been open in the first location for 9 months, the level and the amount of different orders we get every day. And I should have said, we have a very robust back office technology component that overlays this entire concept. And it's an app on your phone. So you could wake up in the morning and see a shutter that you don't like. You could take a picture. You could send what you think your estimated budget is. And before the end of the day, someone on our staff will come back and say, we'll send an associate out to take care of it. It's going to be a carpentry rate. It'll be 1 hour. And since you're a premium member, you'll just pay the $76 rate, which is the discounted rate. So it's really designed to have reoccurring business rather than, trying to find that plumber that's not going to charge you $250 to just come out and give an assessment. So if you become a $99 a year member, you pay $99 for your initial visit, and then you pay the hourly rate. If you pay the $500 a year, you just pay the hourly rate. So, for example, a plumber on our discounted rate is $135 an hour. So a lot of the times we find that depending on what the call is, we might send out a handyman to take care of a problem for a customer because it's going to be a lower rate than a trade. But that's kind of the concept. And the interesting thing from a business or economic opportunity for the community is what we're seeing is some of the larger corporations are coming to us because we can solve multiple problems for them, and they can have one centralized relationship with a senior person that is accountable to the services they're providing. So, I won't say the company, but today we signed up a $55,000 annual PM contract for 2 buildings, which just means we'll handle all their HVAC maintenance for just their rooftop. The last 2 weeks we were on their same roof repairing their units. We did $47,000 in repairs. So we're doing everything from very small jobs to very large jobs, but we're clearly going to need a lot more people as we scale the business. And I really think the housing component to this really is the secret sauce in terms of attracting good people and helping them feel like they have a home and they have a company that cares about them, and they really, we're leaving here and we're going directly to the Red Sox game where all the other employees are right now. And
Sorry.
no, it's good. No, it's all good. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that addressed the consumer, but what about the tradesmen? What is their benefit for joining this group?
Well, we pay our staff very, very well, and we provide a lot of benefits traditional companies don't. And if you look at it, like our retention rate of staff, it's very, very high. Even though we've only been in the business a year, we have a sister construction company, and so some of those employees have pivoted over to become part of Beehive just because of the growth that we're
So
experiencing.
they would be employees, not contractors.
So they wouldn't be independent contractors
So-
available to rent this, just Beehive employees?
Yeah, most are Beehive employees, but on some services, for example, if you came in as a member to our office and said, we want our house painted, we might refer you to, we'd set up meetings for you in our conference room where 3 independent painters who have these shops, we don't do the painting, and we make the introduction and we give you the feedback on who we like the best, and we give you the transparent pricing of what their company charges. So it's a way to, for lack of a better term, we're the repeat customer to a lot of these companies that are in the space. So, like, for example, we don't paint houses, but we've already gotten requests from our members, like, who would you really trust and what would be the right price? And we said, well, you know, you could use this guy, but it's going to take a long time, but he's going to be the cheapest. Or you could use this one, and you're going to get a longer warranty, and they've been around longer. So we're trying to act as a resource for that membership fee to add value back to the people. And one other key thing that we're doing technology-wise is we're using our software in our back office to inventory the components at each facility we service. So it could be a commercial rooftop where we're taking inventory of all of their equipment, the age and date and efficiencies of various, HVAC equipment. So when the state offers incentives or rebates, we're proactively going to our customer base and saying, hey, you're eligible right now. You could get a new water heater. You're at 11 years. The useful life is almost past, and the state will cover 88% of it. So we're trying to add value back to our members by proactively monitoring things that they're not currently thinking about.
So your business plan is not hiring the tradespeople, it's you're the aggregator and curator of the different services and trades.
We're
for
doing
your
both.
members.
We're doing both.
You're
We're
doing
referring some work and we're self-performing some work is the way I would say it.
There's correct me if I'm wrong, but you're supplementing your demand with subcontractors?
Correct. Yep.
And the housing component would be mostly exclusively to your employees, is that correct?
No, it wouldn't. It would be to any trade professional. So
Okay.
it could be a plumber or an electrician that doesn't have space in our first floor, but happens to live in the community and wants to be around other guys that are in the trades.
What if they wanted a space and a place to live?
Yeah, we would absolutely do that. Yep.
Are there any other examples where you've seen residential over shops, warehouse, or IA-type uses?
I don't think I've seen it, to be totally direct with you. This was our idea to really attract a lot of talent to a high-growth company and provide housing that we think we can discount at our cost basis to them at very, very good rates.
Yeah.
We think it's a great perk to be able to provide housing to some of your staff, and there's a whole bunch of things that go into the housing idea that we're trying to model up best practices in the housing community, like,
Yeah, like how are you going to curate the tenants?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I'm sorry?
How will you curate the tenants?
In terms of finding the tradespeople?
Well, I mean, you don't have experience with running residential housing, correct?
Correct. This company doesn't, no. But we have in process probably our sister affiliate company, a lot of apartment buildings that we could build. Yep.
What about the tradesmen who live and work there's trucks?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. We would expect, vans and utility trucks, smaller stuff that services, the typical jobs for the tradespeople. And I think maybe rather than seeing it as a total negative in terms of that adds a lot of, vehicles, but it is right off the main road. But The new building next to us is obviously going to be an industrial warehouse with much bigger trucks, but I think that if we attract the people we think we will, like we did in Southborough, it'll be, ironically, a lot of independent people who are operating out of their garage,
Right.
who are,
So the trucks are on the residential
they're on their
streets.
property, and they're kind of coming now to a central location. That's what we've seen. I mean, the tenants we have now, like in our current location, are, cabinet makers, irrigation companies, all kinds of companies like that. There's a very big demand for it.
Should we take it
I
around
would
and see if
observe,
people have
I mean,
questions?
this is in front of us for a CEIOD applicability. I'm absolutely fascinated by your business
Oh,
model.
thank you. Yeah.
And it's interesting to learn about it, but that, by and large, that business model is not germane to finding applicability. It may be later on in the permitting stage when we actually talk about number of parking spaces and number of trucks. But I think in terms of applicability, it strikes me as a slam dunk.
I'm a little bit less, I like your business model.
Thank you.
I get it. This is our gateway into our town.
Right.
I'm not sure this is you said it's going from an office building to industrial.
Right.
I'm not sure I would like that look.
Right.
I voted against the distribution center next door.
I could see why, honestly.
I would be more open to this
Right.
from an applicability perspective if it didn't look industrial.
Yeah, it's going to look a lot like that. It would ideally probably look a lot like that. And I would say you feel free to drive by it this week. I think you might be surprised.
I drive by it every day.
Do you? Okay, so you kind
That's
of
my
seeing
way
it
of getting
change.
into town.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I would also, again. Oh, Southborough, okay. I would like a little bit, again, if I'm looking at our applicability and what we're, in the COP, is what we want to drive, this is okay, but it's not something that gets me all excited that I would say it's a slam dunk. I mean, I would like something that maybe had, like a restaurant or something that, again, added value
Well,
to the
yeah.
neighborhood.
I am not saying that the ultimate plan is a slam dunk. I'm saying that the applicability
Right.
is a
Yeah,
slam
but
dunk.
again,
But the
That's-
plan
they're
is what-
different.
No, it's not,
if you
because
look at
the
they are.
plan
applicability.
is what we apply to the applicability. Because that plan, to Anita's point, shows no amenities
Right.
or external use to the community. And to me, that's a big component of these overlays.
That was the purpose of this overlay specifically for 129, was to add these amenities.
That was the Bayard.
Right, so if, again, just because it's a project and that someone wants to go through this, doesn't necessarily mean we should, if it doesn't have what we were originally driving for, and again, those amenities, then I don't think this is the right, I'd still like to hear this project come forward, but maybe not through the overlay, the applicability route. Like it to come forward through a normal route.
Right.
Just to clarify, it's only the residential portion that needs the Bayard. And presumably, it's the residential portion that is the amenity. Not necessarily a traditional amenity, but under the Bayard, residential is considered an amenity in and of itself. The first level indoor contractor yard does not need the Bayard or the COID to be permitted. It's indoor contracting that's allowed by right. So it's a kind of a hybrid
I get it.
situation here.
But again, with what we were sold at town meeting, what I voted for and what I was told I was voting for, this wasn't what I visualized. Doesn't mean I don't necessarily want them to come forward in front of the planning board. This is a very interesting idea, but I just don't think and I guess that's where I am, and those are my concerns.
Yeah.
Again, this is our entranceway into our town.
Right.
This sets the tone.
Yeah.
I voted against, and I voted against that distribution center wholeheartedly.
I would say
So-
they're apples and oranges. Yeah.
Right.
I
We
understand.
have Press Cafe. I like to see this area be more, and I do like the idea of the housing on the second floor.
Okay.
I do like that idea.
Yep.
Because I do think there's an opportunity to have more, possibly retail, possibly restaurants, more amenities on the first floor, right? Like, so, and I do like this idea, but I'm not
I'd be happy to
liking-
revisit it in terms of carving out sections or some of these locations to make them like exclusive to restaurant use, because that would be great for us and the guys coming back. I'd love to have a coffee shop in there. I just wanted to come in with a very clean, proposal that didn't ask for the moon, world, and stars, but that you're
Like-
speaking my. I would
Okay.
love to have that.
All right,
To
so
be
then-
totally transparent.
Then that's
Yeah.
what I would like.
Coffee shop? I'm down for that.
Yeah, I'm always there.
Could I ask at your other location, are there any limits as to, say you have a tradesperson that has like heavy equipment beyond like a typical van or truck, so front end loader?
Yes. So
back-
what we've done with that is we're in permitting now to put a second steel building to put those things inside of there. So that would be the plan if we had the space on this site as phase 2, to behind the building, obviously not in the line of sight or anything like that.
Yeah, if you made it look less industrial,
Yep.
and then I'm more open to this.
Yeah. I like the
like-
look so much. I took my corporate headquarters, which is an office building, and we're now finishing it with these nice metal louvers to attract restaurants. And the exact thing you're saying, literally at 118 Turnpike, where I work every day.
Okay.
So.
All right, so
I
that's-
yeah.
that's
I just
what I
didn't
would-
want to over ask at the
Yeah.
initial meeting. Yeah.
One question I have, and this is almost more for the board, and that is that I think when we think of mixed use, we think of living or residential above something like a commercial, like a store or a restaurant or something like that. This is essentially residential above an indoor contractor's yard. And to that end, I would assume that there's a lot of comings and goings of contractor vehicles. But one question I had for you was, in your first building in Southborough, you have on the second floor, and I think you said the third floor, there's storage.
Correct.
And so,
If we had to do it over, we'd have made
In-
the third floor.
okay, so in this
Yeah.
case, this is a second floor, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be storage. So my question is, where is you're taking essentially a similar idea, but you're removing the storage, and so I'm curious about where the rest of that stuff is going to go.
In terms of.
In terms of like, is it going to be kept internal?
In each of the 33 units, or in this case, if we bump it down to, say, 29, because we have 4 that we want to attract retail only, and we'd be happy to have it restricted to that, because that's good for everybody.
I think
Yep.
storage was referred to as self-storage.
Yeah, they
Right.
that
Completely-
model had self-storage as part of the model.
Self-storage,
This one
okay.
does not.
Right.
Okay.
And we got some of that feedback. We originally thought maybe half of it we would do that, and we got feedback in terms of with Evan and his team over the summer.
And the other thing that I mean, because some of these are, if we're going to have them be affordable, then that means they're going to go through presumably the lottery process, et cetera. So there's going to be people coming who are not necessarily of the type that we think this is geared for, which is the young guy who wants to be with other guys and whatnot. But it's potentially going to be with a 2-bedroom, a family, or even in a 1-bedroom, you could have a family. And so without any amenities, the idea of situating a family or small kids, above an indoor contractor's yard, again, to me, that seems like a mixed use that I would think we would want to think twice about in terms of the applicability of SEAT in this case.
So I guess I don't understand something that Joel just said made me question. I mean, we can't have affordable housing that becomes part of an affordable housing stock that's restricted in ages over 18 or to only people in the trades, am I right?
The affordable housing will be required to comply with the state's 40B guidelines. It's fair housing, so no restrictions will be able to be applied, as I'm aware, to the affordable units.
Right.
I think to Joel's point, the marketing that's required for the affordable units can include the other associated marketing with the facility and make it very clear, what other activities are going on in the building, meaning if somebody happens to have a family and they're interested in a 2-bedroom unit, they'll be well aware.
Right. They'd rather have
Well,
a
full
playground
disclosure.
than a,
Right.
Yeah, this is a crowd that's up early. I mean, they're back by 3. They're out by 6. I mean, these guys work hard.
So that being said, I am
Yeah.
a contractor.
Okay.
And I do work different hours.
Okay.
I fix things, so I'm an HVAC service contractor. There's times I work in the middle of the night, make a lot of noise.
Right.
How is that gonna be regulated? How is the work hours gonna be regulated?
Yeah, I mean, we intend to put and be very upfront in the leases with the tenants that there will be hourly restrictions for the very reason that there is residential above it, and we spent a lot of time with our architects on sound detonation, the sound detonating the ceiling, and
In activities, work-related, like
Right.
welding.
yeah, all that. I mean, there's going to be very strict hours on the units, and that'll be part of the appeal or lack thereof to some businesses where, there will be hard times. I don't know exactly what time it'll be yet, but we definitely anticipate having like no work after these hours, no work before these hours kind of thing in these 30-ish, indoor contractor shops.
I like the concept, and I think it's a needed, there's a market for it.
Right.
There definitely is a market for it. But then working out the kinks.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys are using, a self-storage facility, and they're getting really, like, they can't receive their materials, so,
Right.
It
you know,
shuts down at midnight and you can't
right,
get in.
and or there's no power in the unit, or there's no heat in the unit, and frankly, our costs, if you look at our costs in our Southborough location, it's very reasonable. So it's a way for, an independent guy to go meet in a really high-end conference.
Start up.
Yeah, yep.
Am I right that the units will be kind of a hybrid by unit of office, storage?
Yeah, it'll basically be a contractor shop where some of the existing ones will come with offices that are in place. So you could look on our plan and you'd see which ones they're already in place. And we designed it and demoed it around retaining and reusing some of the existing offices. So what we see is a lot of the demand is, let's say, a plumber, an electrician, a sprinkler guy, where they have some, for lack of a better term, racking, where they keep a lot of their components. They have one little office where they put up their plans on the wall, or they're making phone calls, and there's guys out in the shop picking up materials, and they're using the loading bay door directly off the building to put stuff in and out. And they're there maybe, in some cases once a day, and some guys maybe once a week.
So it's like a WeWork for tradesmen.
It really is,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like it.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having us out and early on the agenda. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, again, I think the question of what do we want the details of this to look like have to be separated from whether or not it's applicable under COA.
Yeah, I don't
And I
understand
think
in what way it's
the
not
latter,
applicable.
the latter, we can probably judge on. The former, obviously, will be part of the permitting and
plan
permitting
review.
process.
Yeah, I don't know what aspect of applicability you think is not
For
applicable.
me, it's what Joel had said, where it's the combination of contractor yard versus, or with the residential. I'm having a hard time combining those two in the same building for noise, safety.
I feel like the contractor
You
yard, the
may
main
be
thing
right,
is the
but I don't think
yard.
that's an applicability
I
question.
absolutely do think it is.
I absolutely don't.
I
Isn't
do,
a
because applicability
contractor's yard
includes use.
containing it a
And
yard? This is a
applicability includes
building. It's all
use.
contained in the
The suitability
building.
of use is use.
No,
And-
yard.
applicability is the gate to permit the project to come
being stored in
through
the same
with a
building.
full set of plans and with the formalities.
Right.
The
but-
contractor's
what it
yard,
is.
I mean,
But you have a
I mean, I
plan that
guess.
has residential over.
And
sorry, we're having a
a
side
chance to
discussion.
give the proponent an idea. I think what you're saying is good, to give them an idea about what we would be interested in seeing if and when the project comes forward to us.
And to
As a
me, having these two uses in two different buildings
Okay.
would be better for me than having them in the same
And I
building.
can understand that. I can understand that, but I just don't think that's an applicability question.
What
Obviously,
about
you
the
do.
what about
Yeah.
chemicals that are being used by
Yeah,
the
there's
contractors?
there's some building permit and
Yeah,
fire.
we
questions.
have existing leases now where we're very strict on that kind of stuff for liability reasons, et cetera. And in the specific use, it's lease by lease, tenant interview by tenant interview.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, I'm not so sure you want to have an apartment above a whole bunch of oxyacetylene tanks.
But
maybe
that's
you do.
exactly my point.
Yeah, but that's a question
So-
for the next phase,
Yeah, when we
in
look at
my,
the purpose and the intent of the COID,
Yeah.
again, like for me, it's to encourage aesthetic enhancements where it's currently deficient. Like, I don't want something coming in, like, that's gonna be a detriment to this area. I want it, like, so that's, like, I'm looking through the purpose and intent.
And in what way do you think this is a detriment?
No, I'm not. That's, like, after
Yeah.
what we've just discussed, initially, like, I don't want it to look industrial.
Right.
If we do have,
Yeah.
if we do carve out areas in front that would be for, coffee shop or whatever, restaurant, stuff like that, then it's an enhancement to me. That's where I was going when I was looking at whether or not this project should fall under it.
And the irony is, these units are, the way they're set up now, it's perfect for a resident, like a retail, like coffee shop or something like that, right off the lobby. That would be really wonderful.
Yeah, you
to
can
do that.
take a couple of
You know,
them
again.
and turn
Yeah,
it into a
and-
coffee shop.
Right.
So when, looking at this, to me, it has to be an improvement of what is there. And it is encouraging the right type of development.
Whoever decided on Press Cafe, she's been trying to get them in our corporate headquarters, because we every time we come up, we stop there. It's just a
Yeah.
great thing. It really has
Yeah.
been nice.
Yeah.
Like on the 129 overlay, under purpose and intent, provide housing opportunities that will be compatible and complementary. To
Yeah.
me, that is not
Well,
complementary
to
and
me,
compatible.
the compatible and complementary decision gets made in the next phase.
No, it's part of the
I mean, it's
purpose and intent of the overlay. That is
I'm not buying it.
I
applicability.
disagree. I think it is compatible to what we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other part. Some of us think it might well be.
Just because you don't think it's.
And it can be
compatible. I think it's
adjusted into that. I mean,
compatible. It's housing and
that's
it's
part of
industrial.
the negotiation process before the board to get these little details worked out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not so little details.
Yeah, I don't know if this is good or bad to say, but this problem of these vacant office buildings isn't going
Huge.
away in
Oh,
terms of,
no, it's
and no disrespect, because I don't know the applicant at all, but, what's happening right now across the country is, the McDonald's effect from 1958 to, 2010, where they picked all their locations that they were going to be. That's basically happening with Amazon and all these major distribution centers, and they're grabbing these, what were office areas, and they're, I'm going to use the word bastardizing them and turning them into these boxes that are basically squares with zero value add to the community,
Yeah.
other than to, drive loud trucks in and out of there. And they're eating up a lot of key, like, acreage. If the average McDonald's is 3 acres, the average distribution facility is minimum 10, typically 50. So a lot of good real estate is going to, like, really dead, windowless,
We just went through that.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's true.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Mike, is Mike out there?
Mike Walsh?
Yeah, the only question I had was, I'm sorry, I couldn't see the plans. Do each one of these units, individual units, have direct outdoor access with garage doors, or is it just,
Many
or
of
do they
them-
come in one central location?
Yeah, many of them have, I'd say probably half have direct man door and/or garage door, and some that don't would use the common area loading dock, where they don't. The topography limits it in some locations, and just the interior layout limits it on some of the small units, so they would just use the common area loading dock.
Would it be where you're showing the trucks backed in? Are those
Correct.
the
But-
active doors?
Yes, like, so that used to be a loading bay back in the day, and they filled it in and turned it into a
That's about how many active bays you'd have.
right. That is the
The
concept
current.
design that we have there.
And the other question I had was, the second floor is going to be strictly residential? No commercial, no offices up there, just strictly residential?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I do agree. I listened to the rest of the board. I do agree with Anita. It would be nice to have enhancements on that area. The mixed use, I do understand that there's not a lot of residents in that area. So I don't know how we compare to what's right there. So it is a mixed use, but I think if you can split it. You can't really control what can go inside a building on the mixed use if it's zoned that way. So I like the concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, there's no requirement for the board to vote tonight? I don't know if the applicant wants to maybe take another meeting to revise or revisit. I just throw that out there. We seem to be open to
Yeah, I'm
the
really.
amenity.
I mean, I want to be totally clear. Like, this is our first time coming to your community. You just met us tonight, so we're not trying to speed date. We want to make this like a good, yeah, no, so I mean, we want to go with the speed that this board's comfortable with. So if that means tweaking the plan a little bit and coming back with some of the amenity sections cordoned
That
off
would-
in the
that
plan.
would be nice if you could do
That
it.
would be great, and,
Yep.
you know, kind of pretty it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I'm trying
A
to,
chart, absolutely, yeah, so why don't we plan to do that?
Yeah,
Yep.
and I would hope
I'll
that
take
we
a
could,
ride by the South
we could
Park.
wrap
Thank
it
you,
up
yeah.
for the applicability in another meeting.
yeah.
I think that
I
makes
would
sense.
really
I think we
that.
probably could tonight, but
We
but
probably
it's gonna
could
make
tonight,
people
but you know,
happier
if you want to
to
come
have-
back with some more pictures
Right.
and some ideas,
Sure,
You could,
Yeah.
but the spirit and intent of applicability is that it's a feel-good vote.
yeah.
Yeah,
So if you have several members,
we're reticent.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not really worth it at that point.
Okay.
Is it also possible to see if it could be split 2 floors trades, 2 floors residential, make it almost like
I
2
like this
different?
better.
Then you won't have all the bays.
It's residential.
I like this,
people look
I
at it.
like this,
Yeah.
I like this. I like the idea of the residential on top.
You know,
Yeah.
So between the bay and the residence, would there be a availability of stairwell? So like if you had the unit above the corner, would it connect directly to your?
no, it won't,
would
no,
not?
it's a one, and it's really,
You're stuck with the way you.
yeah, and it's really designed to be like, you're in the residential, you've taken off
You're
your
done.
boot, yeah,
Yes.
you're really entering apartment.
Like a
type.
hotel with the parking lot
I
downstairs
like being
and the
able to go
hotel
back down to the
upstairs.
shop. though.
Right,
This
exactly,
is,
yeah,
You know,
yep,
it's not that big of a hardship to walk outside and back in. but-
right. But you can go into the back of your unit from the first floor, so you can come down the common area stairs and in the
still
common area
inside.
hallway, yeah, without going outside, yep.
this is intriguing.
Yeah.
I like it.
You think that September 25th will be enough time?
Yeah, that's
2
great,
weeks?
yeah, that we can get that done,
Right.
yep. Thank you very much for your time tonight, it's very nice to meet you, and
Thank you.
look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Want to just make a motion to continue to the 25th?
Do we even need to continue this?
Eh, maybe
I'll
not,
move to
but-
continue it. I'm happy to
Yes.
do
Make a
that
motion.
to the 25th.
Moved by Mike, seconded by
Me?
Paul. Oh, he
Oh.
raised his hand. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike?
Mike?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Cool.
Yep.
Enjoy
Thank you,
the
guys.
enjoy the Red Sox
Appreciate
game.
it, thank you.
Yeah,
get there.
sorry,
You're
I hope you
late,
don't
you're
sorry.
late.
Anybody know the
If you
score
catch the
yet?
end of the game.
I'll find out. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we have a minor modification for 191 Chelmsford Street, previously approved site plan.
All right. Good evening to the board. Casey Ferrer with Howard Stein Hudson. Evan, do you have the layout sheet that I submitted?
Excuse me.
So while he's pulling that up, just, I guess, brief overview of the time since I've last seen you. We did receive approval here. We have a decision dated May 22nd, 2024. We've since also received Conservation Commission approval and order of conditions there, as well as the Board of Health approval for the groundwater protection zone. Since that time, we've been working with Mass DOT on the curb cut permit, which is still pending. A couple of things that they actually requested change was the removal of the guardrail because they didn't feel it was actually necessary, and then also removal of striping across the entrance and ramp changes and stuff for them. That is not why I'm here before you guys tonight. I'm here before you because as part of the building design and kind of the layout that they move into after they receive site plan approval, it has been determined that kind of an optimal layout for the internal equipment of the washing equipment requires an additional 5 feet in the tunnel length. So to accommodate that, what we've essentially done is you'll see on the kind of right side of this plan, we have the bump out, which is kind of the office mechanical area. That was mirrored on the other side where the exit tunnel stopped just short of where the office mechanical ended. Now we've just kind of squared that off to allow that extra room. It turns out to be an increase of square footage, approximately 110 square feet.
Can you just show me exactly what you're talking about?
Sure. So
The entrance side.
right here, this bump out, this was mirrored
Okay.
on this other side before.
I see,
All
okay.
we've done is we squared it off.
I'm glad you showed that because that was
Yeah,
what I
because
was looking at.
confused. Wait, now, but where's the street?
The street is on the left-hand side.
This
so
side,
we have
right?
Yeah.
Chelmsford Street right here, our entrance, so this is the runaround to the entrance and the exit. So essentially, the exit wall has just shifted approximately 5 feet towards just to meet where we had this wall before.
This is
The bump out
This
wall.
is, okay, I see it, yeah.
Okay.
And all that was designed to do is just optimize the equipment that they can use for the car wash. It's not intended to increase volume or output. It's strictly for installing the equipment. There has been a number of plumbing changes and stuff as they get into design. I'm not sure whether or not you guys really want to hear about that. But the
No, I
main,
don't.
there's no landscaping changes, no lighting changes, no access changes, no stormwater changes. Strictly just moving a wall in the building to meet where the bump out was.
How was the design changed? Because I know we talked a lot initially about the exterior design. How did that change with this bump out? Did it,
So there was a break. So all that's going to do is bring that bump out to the where the tower element was. And there was a break in the visual aesthetic anyway, so that's going to be maintained to still maintain a separation between that kind of office mechanical wall, and then the exit tunnel has the garage bay door as well with the kind of architectural elements that you chose for kind of that
so
Garrison
that
House
did
style.
not, yeah, that did not change.
Nothing is changing architecturally.
It was to connect the 2-inch PVC return, they needed to do that, is that the reason why?
No, that's a separate plumbing change, but this is driven by the internal mechanicals of the actual wash equipment that's on the inside, which I don't have any part in the design of, just told that they need an extra 5 feet on the tunnel.
Yeah.
The 2-inch return line, that's the recirculation tank, so what I was told as we're moving through with their plumbing engineers is that having the recirculation tanks go under the wash tunnel and through creates a lot of utility conflicts with everything that they have subsurface there. So it would be better if it was on the bypass lane where it just goes under the office portion of it rather than all the mechanicals and utilities. So we just moved the recirculation tanks to the bypass lane side of everything, changed sewer to go around that side, and that's why you see that 2-inch return coming up on that side.
Okay. Anyone have anything else for the applicant?
I just had, so the recirculation tanks went from the middle of the parking lot to the,
Correct, right, just for everybody's benefit. So originally the recirculation tanks were up here,
Yeah.
And they kind of drove straight up to the street. Having to cross the tunnel with the utilities that are required for the recirculation tanks, it was easier to cross the office than the tunnel. So they wanted it on this side, and we wrapped the sewer to come back around and have the same connection.
I'll take a motion.
I will move that we grant the minor mod.
I'll second that.
Moved by Mike Raisbeck, second by Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Casey. Okay. Next up, we have new public hearings. We have continued public hearings. We're not going to talk about our rules and regulations tonight. But one day have a short list of public hearings and we can do our rules and regulations.
we do need to continue that. so-
Maybe we should also think about putting that on a work session, so that it actually gets
That might be
done,
the,
instead of kicked down the curb. But anyway, I'll take a
So
motion.
I move to continue that to a future work session to be determined.
I
second
second. No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that was
Aye.
a motion by
Chris.
Chris, second
I
by
think Paul
Paul,
got it.
and unanimous, including Mike Walsh on the Zoom call. Okay, next up, we have 150 North Road Viking Development LLC for the property at blah, blah. I'm not going to read it.
Not gonna read it, just not gonna read it.
For the record, Chris Fazenden, here on behalf of Viking Development LLC, 302 Innovation Drive, Franklin, Tennessee. Get right into it. When we were here 2 weeks ago, the takeaway was to look at a site plan that had 7 parking spaces, and then a narrative that kind of discussed the impacts of those changes to landscaping, drainage, all of those things. Both of those were submitted last week. High level, we moved everything 9 feet west or plan north there and added the 7 spaces. What that did was shifted the retaining wall, landscaped area, curb, drive lane, trash enclosure, all of that about 9 feet, plan north or west. I'll emphasize that in making those changes, we made sure to stay focused on all the previous items we discussed: landscape screening, lighting, circulation, all of that. And then lastly, you'll see in that top right corner there, we added a designated snow storage area, 825 square feet, paved, striped, designated only for snow
That's the
storage.
lined corner.
Yeah, the radius area there on the top right.
Yeah, that looks accessible.
So that's really the gist of all the changes. I thank you. We have our design team here if you have any technical questions.
I just want to thank you for those changes. They look really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it fit in well. You almost don't even notice them. Yeah.
And does this impact, did I read somewhere that it impacted the stormwater management if we were to,
It did in the narrative. It lists some increases. 2,200 square feet of impervious area. They added a couple of chambers to the underground system.
so then I guess, my bad, I never quite clarified what we were doing with this. Were we wanting them to implement these changes, or we were wanting them to give us a plan if they needed in the future to implement these changes? This is what that would look like.
It sounds like with the retaining walls moving, it's probably something that has to be decided upon
Right.
now rather than later. You don't
Yeah.
want
So are
to
these changes that you guys
retaining
are
wall.
willing to make?
Yes. So we updated our entire design and submitted a whole nother set of drawings.
Right.
So
But I
think we're
still didn't know
comfortable
if they were
moving forward. This-
provisional or,
I think the original understanding was that we'd put an exhibit together. After we went back and thought about it, we saw it fitting 9 feet, not a huge deal. Let's meet in the middle at the 57 spaces.
got it.
And then the hope would be the plans are now ready to go and we can just kind of keep moving
Okay.
forward.
Okay. All right. Do we have any questions in addition or comments to the applicant?
I think we've come to a good place.
What's that?
I think we've come to a good place here.
Okay.
Do we want to discuss potential conditions?
Yes.
Yeah.
So why don't we, is there any comment from the public in addition? Thought I saw you come in.
My name is Michael Joy at 147 North Road. Real quick, not related to this, the Beehive, I think that's an awesome project. As a owning 2 small businesses and lack of storage, I didn't have a public comment for that point. As for this project, I still think it's, keep it short and sweet. The building size is unreasonable, the land plot's unreasonable, and I don't see how adding spots, parking spaces helps that. The 2 daycare centers in the area both have lots under 2 acres. Both have buildings that are within 10,000 square feet, where it's 16,000 over 3.5 acres, taking up 3 residential lots in the middle of a housing crisis with the state passing a $5 billion bill. I don't see how this project can be deemed reasonable. I feel as if it fails to meet that. I believe there's precedent to say it doesn't at this current size and the current lot area. And to remind the board that it is up to the applicant to prove, if you guys deemed it unreasonable, to prove that your ruling is going beyond your. So, that's it.
Thank you. Do we want to further discuss amongst ourselves?
You wanna
Are we
close
at the point where we want to close the public hearing first?
So take a motion.
I make a motion to close public hearing.
I'll second that.
Anita made the motion, Paul made the second, and I'll take a vote.
Aye.
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 It's unanimous? Okay. So first discussion amongst ourselves, and then to proceed with conditions, if we are then at that point.
Actually, I think we need to reopen the public hearing if we want the applicant's input on the conditions.
Okay,
Do we have to do that? Yeah.
right, then let's reopen the public hearing. Take a
I'll
motion.
second
So
that.
moved.
Make a motion to reopen public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry about that. Okay, so let's first talk amongst ourselves, if anyone has any further commentary on this project.
I know our hands are kind of tied on this. and this, I've got concerns of the business model. Again, I think this is someone who looks at a map of Chelmsford, who's not from this area. I've got concerns that, you know, this will be a daycare facility. It'll go along for about 5-10 years, and then somewhere along the line, they're going to realize that this is not as profitable. They can't fill the positions, and we're going to be left with this space. And again, these residential, you know, potentially could have been residential, nice area. Now we have this building.
Yeah.
That is my concern. Nothing against the applicant. It's just those of us who've lived here know this area, know the traffic on that road. Again, like, that's not where I would look to put my kids in for daycare. And just because I'm a busy mom and I'm trying to get there to pick them up, trying to drop them off, not the ideal location. I know you're dead set on it because you think that's great right off the highway, Route 4, all of that. I wish you the best of luck. I hope you're successful and you stay in this area and it's really successful, but I do have concerns. And I think part of that is the size of it. I think if it was smaller, I think it has a better chance of succeeding.
I actually kind of agree with Anita in some of that, in this underlying sense.
That's a first, by
But,
the
yeah,
way.
it's a first. I was going to point that out.
Mark
But I think the control that we have to apply here is not a control of what this use is now. It's to make sure that we don't get into the situation that we have seen around town with various projects. They're there, they happen 6-8 years later, something changes, and now somebody comes in with a proposal for it that we never would have passed in the first place. But the building's already there, and they wear us down, and we go for it. And I don't want that to happen, so I want to be sure that,
So can we put a covenant, some kind of a restriction? I mean, when this is being built under the Dover Amendment, so if, I mean, is it even necessary to put such a restriction if something is built under that, use by right provision, and then somebody wants to change the use, they would have to come to us, correct?
yeah, we're absolutely sure that that's
That
true.
goes without saying. We talked about last meeting, one Dover use changing to another Dover use right around the corner. It required coming back to the planning board.
Okay.
That was the
So
church
even
to
if
the
it's
daycare.
another Dover use, it has to come back to us.
Yes.
And certainly if it's not a Dover use, then the doors are wide open.
then we could-
Then they have
Yeah.
no legal protections.
Right.
We could refuse and feel very happy about it and justified if someone wanted to buy this and do something different and just not allow it.
If it wasn't a Dover, if
If
it
it's
was
a
not,
non-Dover use.
then it's whatever the zoning allows, which I
Right.
think we all understand it's single-family zoning.
Okay. So they might have to raise it and sell it as 3 lots.
And interesting, now here's a curious question. This is zone single family. I want to be absolutely sure that there's not a COID way in, because this is not exactly a single family use. It's going in because of Dover. But I want to make sure that there wouldn't be a COID way around this. And I don't think there would be. That's my reading of,
No,
I mean,
COID
the
only
underlying
applies to
zoning
commercial
is
zoning.
single family.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good.
What were you thinking for conditions, Chris? I see a list.
Yeah. So some of these were ones that have been talked about or proposed by you. The flashing beacons at Wigan and Erlin. Based on the last meeting, lights off between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. I think it was 7 a.m., but I'm suggesting maybe.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was something we went internal about and stuck with 7.
So
to try and up
7
the-
p.m. to 6 a.m. would be
Sure.
okay?
Yep.
Okay. Deliveries and garbage between 10 and 3, I think it
Yeah.
was?
That you might have pulled that one from Weymouth.
Yeah.
10 a.m. and 3 p.m.?
Yes.
Presume that would not apply to snow removal.
Correct.
Plows have to show when they show.
That you would conduct the timing changes on the lights,
Yeah.
and then
Maybe even sooner. If they're gonna lead to improvement in the traffic flow, maybe we could do them.
I can only do them as quick as we can get those plans approved.
Yeah. And then the two that I'm proposing to add would be if there are events in the school of 2 or more classes, that it be held off-site.
So that one I think I'd have to work with you on in terms of where we draw that line.
What do you mean?
Because I've got 3 2-year-old classrooms, 3 3-year-old classrooms.
Okay.
So I understand what you're going for.
I understand the full school
Yeah.
events would be off-site, but there's going to be something in between the one classroom and the full school where it's going to create a big
could we
traffic.
label it with
and-
like a student count or something like that instead of classrooms?
How many students are in a classroom?
195 at full. Oh, at a classroom, 20 would be our largest.
60?
So if there's an event with 2 classrooms, say 40 kids, that's a lot of additional parents coming in at once. So maybe 40 kids, events of 40 kids or more.
When do you normally hold these events? Are they late afternoon? Are they after close?
Yeah, no, they typically would occur between 4 and 6 p.m. It would be at
What are
pickup
we
time,
talking
right?
about, like an ice cream
The only reason
social
I
or
asked
Christmas
that is
play?
Yeah,
because
we will have morning events, donuts with dad, but we also have, ice cream social at the end at pickup, and like I said last week.
the only reason I asked that is not middle of the day, when obviously most of the employees are likely there, and many of these facilities towards late afternoon, early evening, students begin to leave.
But that's
the
when you have
facility.
more parents picking up kids and needing spaces,
Right,
so.
but you may actually have spaces available.
Not if there's an event. That's my point. is
Well,
that
I think
you need the
the
spaces
model
open.
is likely to look like it's the same number of cars, some of them just stay longer. If you follow me. The parent's gonna come pick up the kid. And there maybe stay for an hour for the
So-
ice cream social before.
But
they
is
So
it-
leave.
is
we
it
can,
ice cream
we can
social or
attempt
is
to
it-
resolve this tonight. We don't have to resolve this
Right,
tonight.
Yeah.
And I
that's a
don't,
good
we
point.
can
You
work
wanna
out the
introduce the
details, but I
concept.
would want some in between.
Yeah, and I'm willing to work with you on that.
Okay.
It's just from an operations side, I am not familiar completely
Yep.
with
Yep.
how many
'Cause
kids, how many
What
parents.
we'll likely do here is, we're going through a list of conditions. And if you task me, I'll draft a decision, we'll have it available at the next meeting. So we don't need to figure out all the details tonight. I think the exercise we're going through was good, because in the event there is a condition that they are unacceptable with,
Yep,
we should know that sooner rather than later.
yep.
And that's when I can certainly come back next, in 2 weeks
Okay.
and have
All right.
more idea of what we can do.
Because sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, just on the, like, I remember from my kids were, like, they would have holiday, concerts late in the afternoon, which, like, in my case would be me and my husband going with 2 cars, because we both want to get there to see if they're both coming from work. So that, I think that's what you're trying
Yeah.
to, it's not necessarily like the ice cream social, but if there's like a
Yeah, so
classroom
that
or
would
2
be
people-
off-site, because
that
that
would
would
definitely-
be,
okay.
every classroom sings a song for, graduation
Yeah.
or winter, formal or whatever it is. Those are held off-site.
Okay, like, I think.
Well, yeah, and those events, but there are going to be maybe grade events that are one
All right.
grade together, something
So
like
he'll
that.
get back to us on what he thinks is acceptable, and we'll have to decide if we think it's also acceptable.
Yep. The other one, it would be good to maybe see a traffic or safety review after some period of time in operation, just to make sure that traffic's flowing okay, that there are no adjustments that may need to be made after operations have been in place for a while.
Is that something we could ask of our safety people? I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know. Just
Well,
call
I
up
mean-
the
But
chief and
we've
say,
often
have a look.
proposed it as a condition for some
Yeah.
of the other projects.
Yeah, that's true, that's
Where
true.
we've had traffic
You want
concerns.
to, we'll figure out a way to try to coordinate that with the implementation of the timing improvements with the light?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
We'll figure
Yeah.
something out,
I think scope and all of that would have to iron out, but
yeah.
yeah, some type
What
of
exactly are
review
we
after some
studying?
period of time after the crosswalks have been in place, the timing has been in place to see if there's any other things that the town or the applicant can work through if things do end up getting worse than we would expect.
That we would capture it.
sure. Yeah, basically something, I can't necessarily, right, because it can't be without, outside the limits of what we're
Yeah.
developing.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Again, there's an existing problem, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Any more?
Nope.
Okay.
Now I make a motion to close public comment. Are we good?
Close the
There,
public
Hannah.
hearing. I think we're ready for that.
I will second it.
Motion by Anita, second by Mike Raisbeck. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Okay, and I'll take a motion on,
So I got a quick note for you guys before you make a vote. So I've been on this committee for 7 years, and, we haven't really pushed back on some projects. And so before you take your vote, just my opinion, this is wrong for Chelmsford. This is wrong for the neighborhood. And yes, it's coming in under Dover, but there's no reason why we have to approve this. Let town council represent us in land court and fight it out then. Just because they're coming in for Dover Act, that the amendments, the only reason why we're discussing this. Look at your conditions you were just talking about. It's an existing problem on that roadway, and you're just going to enhance it. You're going to make it worse. This whole week I've been going up and down Route 4 with the traffic, and it's 45 miles per hour. I mean, at what point do we say no as a board? So think about that before you take a vote in favor of this, because you're going to wreck a neighborhood, and it's in the dead center of Route 4 in a residential, single-family neighborhood. That's all I have to say, Deirdre.
so you're stating that you,
I'm voting no.
I know, but I'm.
And if we
Okay.
have a majority of the
You're
board
voting
votes
no
no,
based on the unreasonableness of size or the unreasonable impact to traffic
it's
or
the
both?
wrong, it's everything.
Well-
Everything we
well,
talked about.
we
Wrong
have to-
location, it's the wrong size, it's wrong for the neighborhood, and it's wrong for Chelmsford. Let's allow if this proponent really wants to come in here, then let's go to court over it, and let's fight it in court and allow the courts to tell us that we have to put this in place. Because when does it stop? This is perfect for down in the 129 area. This outside company has come in and they've picked right in the dead center of Route 4. And it's going to create a major issue in town. And it's going to be regrettable for this planning board to approve this. So I'm just telling you up front, I usually don't take a stand like this, but come on, this is crazy. So my vote, I'm going to be voting no against it. And if there's other planning board members that want to say no too, that's fine. If you want to vote for it, that's great.
That's fine, but legally, we have to, excuse me, can I
We don't
finish
have to
my,
do
can I
anything.
finish my sentence? Legally, we're able to deny it on the basis that it's not reasonable. So we have
agree.
to, in our decision, lay out the ways in which it is not reasonable to us. So I'm asking you to clarify, it's
16,000
wrong for the town, doesn't
feet.
meet, it's not reasonable. You have to, you have to spell.
Size-wise, traffic-wise, and safety of Route 4, pedestrians on that street. That's why I'm saying it's unreasonable.
Mike,
And
So that's why I
removal of 3 residential properties.
so guys,
I'm not
based
sure
on the
that
Dover,
is relevant
based on
to
the
rest of it.
Dover Act, the reasonable regs and applied to use can only be applied for bulk and height, the lot itself, the lot coverage, open space, parking, and building coverage.
Right.
We cannot, unfortunately, take into account safety and traffic.
I understand, that's great, but
Oh, we
unfortunately,
can.
I'm not putting my name on that we can't incorporate safety to a project.
The notice from the MMA states safety as a reason to deny for being
Did we close the public hearing?
Yeah, I recommend we take a vote on this. Or can I make a motion to vote on this project?
Just to clarify the voting thresholds, the Dover site plan is a simple majority, and then the voluntary special permit is supermajority, which we haven't spent a lot of time on, but. And just for the board's information, council has been with us this evening. And
He's what?
He is with us this evening.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for council?
Actually, I do. Can you confirm that traffic and safety are not part of the considerations that we can make under Dover?
As being unreasonable?
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes. Through the chair, I can confirm that. That is language directly lifted from the statute itself.
Thank you.
So we would be making the case that the building is too tall or too
Bulky,
bulky
16,000 square feet.
for the site or
For the area?
for the area? I mean, that seems like an aesthetic
Well, we have
determination.
that
Does that
other-
rise to the level of
That's
something?
not aesthetic when you put a 16,000 square foot building in a residential neighborhood. It's not aesthetic, it doesn't fit.
What is the daycare that turned into, was it down the street?
What's that?
It
What's the
went
size?
from a church to a daycare.
I
Church
lived
to
right
day-
next door to
Yeah,
that.
how big is that?
Not
That's not
six-
16,000
Not
square feet.
No, it's,
16,000, maybe 10.
There's multiple floors in there, so I don't know offhand.
That's not 16,000.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
That looked like
we didn't spend a
not
lot
even
of
10.
time on how reasonable regulations are determined. But the applicant has presented that it's compliant with the underlying zoning related to FAR, setbacks, lot coverage. So,
Compliant with, as those things pertain to the Dover Act.
as it pertains
To
to the
our zone.
underlying RB
Okay.
zoning. So remember, it's a 3-acre site.
Right.
So when you do the math, let's assume the standard was you had to comply with underlying RB zoning standards.
Mm-hmm.
I think the applicant has presented and the plans indicate that dimensionally, setbacks, FAR, lot coverage, it's compliant. So I think the next question is, does that by default mean that it's reasonable if it's compliant with underlying zoning, or is there some other reasonable standard that's applied outside of underlying zoning? I don't know that answer.
Council, would you be willing to weigh in on that question? I mean,
Yes, absolutely. If the project complies with the requirements that are now in place in the zoning bylaws as to the factors we mentioned, lot coverage, lot size, et cetera, then it's per se reasonable under the Dover Amendment. The Dover Amendment does not give the board discretion in this instance to say, well, it complies with our zoning bylaws, but we still don't think it's reasonable. If it does comply with the existing dimensional requirements, then it would be per se reasonable.
so in your opinion, we need to be able to say it's unreasonable, this project is unreasonable to deny it. And I was of the opinion, walking in tonight, that we didn't have any grounds to deem this project unreasonable. based on the project that's been presented to us. Would you disagree with that statement?
Based on what I've heard, that the project is compliant with all the applicable bylaws, no, I have not heard a basis for saying that compliance would be unreasonable or that the project can be denied at this point.
And I think the bulk and height is related to the lot itself and not the neighboring neighborhood.
May I offer something?
Yes, please.
Maybe the appropriate step is, if the concern is related to parking, traffic extended to safety, while those items aren't necessarily directly related to Dover or within Dover, the applicant has indicated that they're willing to work with the board on those 6 conditions. Some of those conditions are somewhat related to a post-occupancy review. And maybe the key here is to work with council to try to develop
Conditions that are,
some a bit more robust standards or conditions than we would normally do on our own.
Yeah.
In that way, the board has taken the steps as far as they possibly can by engaging with council, asking for some assistance on creating some, more involved conditions that speak to some of the board's concerns, with the understanding that the applicant is in conceptual agreement with those.
I think that's a good idea, and I think we should do that, but I don't think it addresses the concern that most of us have about the size of this project within the neighborhood. And I know I have that concern. I share Anita's concerns about this being the wrong location for this. However, with that being said, I'm not seeing much we can do about that.
Yeah, I mean, if this were a special permit, we would
We
have
do have
much.
as part of this.
Yeah, part of it is, but
Erosion.
I think for the overall scheme here, if this were in a special permit context, I think we'd have a lot more
Yeah.
territory to work in.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's for that reason, I'm not convinced that a great deal of pushback will be helpful to us.
But I do think it would be useful to have town council look at
Yeah.
the-
So
Certainly
the
is.
other option here procedurally is I don't believe the board is required to take a vote tonight. I think going through the exercise of conditions is a good one, and what we've done in the past is drafted a decision, and then you're still deliberating that draft decision. Maybe in this case, engaging with council to create a draft
Yeah.
for deliberation.
create the conditions, help create the conditions.
I think we should work with council to try to make it, the regulations, the conditions as strong as possible, for the simple fact that my time on this board, I rarely see a concern, when we look at the departmental letters, we rarely see a concern raised by the police department. In this case, we did.
Red
Yeah.
flag.
Yeah, they've been flagging. Yeah,
So Jonathan, just based upon what you're hearing, and particularly the mention of the police department letter and the public record on the traffic peer review, I mean, what are your procedural recommendations to the board? Is that something that should be revisited or reviewed in more detail? Or should the public hearing remain closed and the board focus on drafting a decision?
Through you, Madam Chair, I concur with the planning director's advice to the board about conditions. I think that's the appropriate direction to go at this point under the legal standard that applies, to try to establish some reasonable conditions within the context of site plan approval to approve the project. The one thing I wanted everyone to keep in mind is that if this project is voted down, an appeal is taken to court, the board could potentially lose its ability to impose any conditions on the project. If the court overturns a decision, it could simply be as submitted. So I think presents a good opportunity for the board, given the concerns, to work on reasonable conditions of approval.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is take no votes tonight. The public hearing's closed. We have ample time within the statutory timeframes. We'll have a draft decision for the next meeting, which is September 25th.
Okay.
How many things do we have on September 25th, by the way?
How many, what?
How many hearings do we have on September 25th?
We have Nancy Chen, 330 Billrica Road. This, that's what we have so far.
Okay,
No new public hearings.
Okay.
I'll make,
Madam Chair,
I'll
can I
take-
ask some questions?
Sure.
I just want to make sure I understand what just occurred. I'll start by saying that we've now gone through the process in terms of all of these reasonable regulations, traffic safety, all of that. We've had our own studies done by professionals. We've used third-party reviews. We've had all of them stand up here and explain to you what the impact of this project is. And there has not been any legitimate concern that we couldn't find a solution to. A lot of the conditions being discussed, the RRFBs, the lighting timing, the parking, those are us cooperating with you. Those are not conditions that are required for this development to operate. I want to make that clear. And then, Evan, just so I understand what's being agreed to, are we going to discuss conditions applicant and board, or is it just on your side that'll be presented to us prior to the next meeting?
Well,
Right,
I mean, they won't
my
make
original
some-
thought was it would be drafted, it would be shared, and then at the next meeting it would be voted
Discussed.
yes.
Yeah, that's still
Same
correct.
process.
Yeah,
We're just not voting tonight.
correct.
Right.
Okay.
Right, I mean, as I understand it, and council can correct me, in order to have an approval that the conditions are deemed reasonable, I think you need some interaction or
Yeah.
engagement from the
No,
applicant.
so we need to
Of
open the
course.
public.
Right. What's that?
We need to reopen this?
I don't think we need to
Okay.
reopen it tonight.
We can continue it.
We may have to reopen it on the 25th, depending, if there are proposed conditions that the applicant isn't
Do we
necessarily
have to post
comfortable
it,
with.
though, that it's an open meet, like, if it's,
Well, council's rejoined us. Jonathan, you have something to add to that?
No, I've been here all along. I just turned my
Oh, okay.
camera on. Sorry about that. No, I think that's correct. As far as reopening the public hearing, the purpose of that is to present new evidence or comment to the board. So if the board has taken in all the evidence it needs to address this application and to formulate conditions, then it can do that at a continued session of the meeting without having to reopen this to comment. If other information comes in during that time, for instance, the applicant submits some new information to address a proposed condition, then yeah, I think it would be appropriate at that point to reopen the hearing to make sure that, all points of view are heard. But if that doesn't happen, then I think you can proceed to conditions without reopening the hearing.
But if we want the applicant's input into those conditions or have that discussion, we would have to open the hearing, the public hearing again, right?
I think that's probably the safer course of action. I would agree.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
we don't need to make any motions,
to do something.
continue.
Move to continue this to September 25th.
I will second.
Motion by Chris, second by Mike Raisbeck. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And Mike Walsh.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have, it's getting hot in here, Evan.
We haven't started
is.
with it yet.
Deidre, how much more time do you have with us this evening?
Come on, Deirdre, you can do it.
My daughter's leaving the country shortly, tomorrow, for a number of months, so I'm gonna try and be out of here a little early, but I don't wanna miss this.
Well, the reason I ask is, maybe we could agree on, if you have a hard stop, it may be beneficial to just we'll let everybody know.
Okay. Well, yeah, I need to be out the door at 9.
We should be
And
good.
it's now
It'll
8:36.
be tight. Maybe you continue.
I need to, you have not mullened in, right?
I
You've-
have.
She has
You already
once.
have mullened in once. So if this discussion goes beyond 9 o'clock after she leaves,
Then I won't be eligible to vote.
Joel, you're up.
Yep, let me Joel's up.
All right. Sorry. I mean, I guess I can stay.
Go home.
Some things you
More
gotta
important.
do.
You know what?
Yeah.
She's more important.
Your daughter's more important.
Is she going on a boat?
She's going on a boat.
Yeah, she's more important.
She's going to be at sea for a couple of months in blue ocean water.
So I can offer, will be as brief as possible, and if we don't resolve what we're looking to resolve this evening, we'll certainly ask for a continuance
I'm
and pick
sorry.
up the discussion in 2 weeks.
She
Thank
told me
you.
a
No
different
problem
date
at all.
and then it got,
So with that, for the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates on behalf of Property Possible. I have Doug Hausler, attorney on this. So to be brief, I just would like to go over quickly exactly what we've done for revised plans documentation, reiterate our kind of commitments to what we've discussed previously. Doug can speak to some housekeeping on procedural matters, and then we're probably going to run out of time. Since 2 weeks ago, we revised the plans that reflected the straw poll. So we eliminated 2 waivers, one of them being the roadway width of 34 feet. So we've expanded the right-of-way width to 34 feet. So we expanded it to 40, so it's now compliant. And we also, what was the other? So the only two waivers that we have right now are sidewalk on the northern side, which was agreed upon, and the hammerhead turnaround. The one that was revised was pavement width. So we went up from 20 feet to 22 feet. So now we have a fully compliant roadway with the exception of those two waivers that the board indicated favorably. We also responded to engineering comments. Really, the only germane one was securing an easement on parcel X, or showing an easement on parcel X to encompass the sewer service line that exists today for the existing house that's going to be repurposed for Lot 4. So that is on there. For fire department, we issued a sweat path analysis and responded to all the fire department's comments. We got an email back from them thanking us for the revision and the response. One item of note, not necessarily trying to speak to it, but it was brought up last hearing about the PFAS, the groundwater contouring, and I look back on the record, and we had issued a groundwater contour map that overlaid our project, and we had discussion in July on that with our LSP, and we had kind of thought that issue was resolved. Now, so we believe everything within 10 Hildreth proper, with the exception of Hildreth Street and the widening and what's associated with that, all question comments have been addressed. So please tell us if that is not the case. Now, VAI today issued a revised traffic impact assessment. Now, the only change to the traffic impact assessment was to rerun the numbers for trip generation of our project from 6 lots and 12 units down to the current configuration, which is 4 lots and 7 units. Recommendations, findings all remain consistent. We simply reduced density within the assessment to reflect the plan so that the record is clear. On Hildreth Street, there was a question about sidewalks and whether or not we had committed to doing that previously. So I looked back at the record, excuse me. Back in May, Vanessa issued a memorandum. One of the responses to Beta had a consideration about sidewalk construction, It was quoted at $180,000. And in that letter, there was a suggestion that we would make kind of a contribution to that. Now, an important piece to note on that, when that was issued and the conversation happened in March, this was still a 6-lot subdivision with 12 units. Since then, excuse me, we have discussed roadway widening. We've committed to roadway widening to 18 feet. The density has gone down from 6 to 4 lots and 7 units. So I had a conversation with the applicant, and he feels that the roadway widening coupled with the town engineer's request for survey and street acceptance plans for the town to take over or accept Hildreth Street, he is willing to provide that. So it's roadway widening of Hildreth Street to 18 feet, as well as survey and plans to allow the town to, at some future date, accept Hildreth Street as a public road. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Doug, just to briefly touch on any procedurals,
One or two
if you want.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and I will be brief. One of the questions that came up at the last hearing was about the applicant's right to have this brought before the board and whether or not there was written permission from the owners. So I provided Evan, who then provided it with town council, I believe, evidence, conclusive evidence that the original property owner, Kimberly Oberhauser, gave such written consent on November 18th of 2020, and that subsequent, when unfortunately she passed away, her son inherited the property, and he gave written permission allowing the applicant to go forward as its attorney in fact and to come before this board and seek all the types of relief it has. And he did that on April 8th of 2023. So I want to be clear so that there's no misconception for the public. Everything that's been submitted was done with the consent of the owner and authorization. So clear that issue up once and for all. The second item that I just want to bring to the attention of the board is you can approve this if you so desire, with the condition that it's going to be subject to the Board of Health's ultimate determination about the septic systems and how they work. We don't believe that that's an environmental type issue that's not within germane to this board's jurisdiction. But you could make a condition that before any kind of construction goes forward, the Board of Health would have to opine and consent to the septics. With respect to the widening of the street, as we just mentioned, our client is prepared to make some type of contribution to this by providing quite a amount of the engineering that will allow this town to get that street approved. And it will be then at the town's expense to put in that sidewalk. But it'll be positioned, because if my client goes forward with the 18 feet, the town engineer has already indicated that that's perfectly fine with the town engineer's standards. And to suggest that it would be approved at town meeting. The other alternative to this, and I am not trying to throw a bomb here, so I don't want to hear moaning and groaning, but there is another solution, which is to make Hildreth Street one way, heading south from Bill Ricker Road, and then heading south. That would accomplish a number of things. People may not like that, but what it would definitely address, and I think the board has to think about that, is A, it would be one-way traffic, so the width of the road, even today, would apparently be okay. Number two, it would have the cars coming up and clearly would be able to see any pedestrians walking along the street. They would have a lot wider area to see people. I recognize that people are used to doing things in a certain way, and like we were with the town common and coming down Westford Street, but the town put in those blockers to stop the merging of traffic. Sometimes a little change happens to work for the better. You don't have to do that, but it is an alternative that you can consider, suggesting that this be a one-way street up Hildreth, and then everybody can exit out through Plum and down. I think it's Grove, I believe. Other than that, do you have anything else that you like? I believe that we're at a point where we could ask this board to take a vote. We hit most of the criteria that you've asked for, and the waivers are down to the two that you've already indicated were acceptable. Thank you.
Okay. Do we want to take public first, or do we want to discuss first?
Just a quick question regarding ownership. Town council had indicated that the board should request an attestation document stating that that's still in effect. Has that been
provided.
provided?
That's been
Okay.
provided.
That was provided, and then town council weighed in that that was adequate.
That was not provided.
It was not provided.
I thought I saw it.
No. The original document was provided.
Oh, okay, I understand.
But the sworn attestation that it's still in effect and in full force is something we would need to request. Because it was originally signed in April of 2023, and given the owner's discussions with some of the neighbors, there may be some question about that.
There isn't any question. It's never been terminated. We have a signed contract.
So based on our attorney's recommendation, I would like to officially ask for a sworn attestation that the power of attorney is still in effect in full force.
As we sit here today, it is. As a matter of law, it's never been terminated.
Okay.
Any kind of termination would have been required to be in writing. It hasn't, that's never been done. So as you sit here today, it's valid.
Could we get our town council's opinion?
Is he still there?
Yeah, Madam Chair, my concern on this, and the reason I suggested an attestation is because two things. Number one, it's been addressed. Concerns have been raised, at least by hearsay, that the owner may no longer be in favor of this. But more importantly, I think that the attestation was presented to the board in the form of an excerpt from a document that the board does not have. So I think what it would be appropriate in this instance is simply to say, yes, this is the true and complete copy of the attestation that's presently in effect. And the attestation is fine to come from the applicant. That's all that the board would be requesting.
Yeah, you can do that.
The applicant's not-
We'll have our client Michael sign an attestation based on town council's comment that he still has rights. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I also wanted to mention, when we first were asked for the two waivers of the right-of-way and road width, the discussion was that it was needed in order to pull that fourth lot out of the conservation restriction area. We pulled back those waivers, and it's interesting how that is still outside of the conservation area. So I just wanted to mention that publicly, that was essentially not needed at the time. But it was given as a reason for those waivers. I also have a question to clarify. The applicant is willing to put money towards sidewalks on Hildreth?
No, not money. It's contributing the engineering plans, which it has paid for, which can then be used by the town engineer. As the town engineer has previously discussed, it would be very positive. The town saves the town a ton of money not to have all the engineering. So we're turning over our, I'll call it intellectual property for the town to use and it can rely upon. So that's the contribution.
This is assuming the town meeting body accepts this roadway.
Well, it would be built out first, to be built out to the way the town engineer is suggesting, that 18 feet is sufficient. That the town engineer would be relying on the plans that we provide when I would consider them as-built, basically, in the surveys, that would show the engineering that took place, and the town can then rely on it. It doesn't have to go out and resurvey.
So you're not willing to, the
Additional
applicant
cash? No,
is not willing to put sidewalks on Hildreth?
that's correct.
Okay. As also a town meeting rep, I can say that with fair certainty that that roadway will not be accepted by town meeting that close to a school without a sidewalk.
Okay.
I'll wait for
Town-
town meeting to make that decision.
And that is a problem for me because if that doesn't get accepted and there's no sidewalk and we approve this project, we're approving a project that has safety concerns that will never get addressed. Because your applicant is not willing to put sidewalks on Hildreth.
It's not obligated to, and it's not willing to. It's contributing in other ways that the town has said is acceptable to it. Your board may not believe that's enough, but town engineers seem to think that was a very significant contribution. I might add that there are other people, and the entire town would benefit by having that town road accepted. And if the town road was accepted, the town engineer might recommend putting in a sidewalk.
At the town's expense.
Yes,
Because it's needed because of
benefit
your
of everybody.
project being added.
for the benefit of everybody, not because of this Hildreth Street. The neighbors are saying, before this has been built, that it's questionable, that it's a safety issue. Then the sidewalk should be going in whether this project's going forward or not.
The
We're
traffic
making it more
study
feasible.
indicated that it's a safety issue,
And the alternative to that was to make it a one-way. That
which will
solves-
increase speeds, which will cause another safety issue.
That's not what the report said.
It absolutely does.
Okay. You said the same thing, by the way, about the sidewalk, and you see the discrepancies of the timing.
Okay.
Can I just say something? 18 feet wide, before you make a decision, I really want you guys all to come down my street. And I want you to see what 17 feet wide is. And you tell me whether or not 2 cars can pass on it. So I think this plan, whether I appreciate them making the 13 feet now 18 feet, before anybody makes a decision, please come down my street. And we will do it. We'll take my car and one of your cars, and you tell me whether or not that is a sufficient width. And looking at this, in section 81M, when you're looking at a subdivision, it says that it's basis of laying out the public ways, even those adjacent to it, based off of safety. And I just don't believe that 18 feet, doubling the traffic, doubling the housing on that street, because that's what it's basically doing, going up by, I just don't think that's, again, this to me, looking at the subdivision law, this is not.
In addition to the traffic and safety, I also had a question about Lot 4. In a number of the documents, it was pointed out that that is noted as a duplex lot. In some documents, it's not. Is it your position also that you will not put a deed restriction on that lot? Okay.
On that item, we may need some guidance from council, but my understanding is past definitive subdivision applications where waivers have been granted have approved the plans based upon the number of dwelling units being approved. So while the applicant may not agree to a covenant and the board may not have legal authority to covenant, there may be other means to effectuate the same result. And so if that's a significant matter to the board, I would encourage you to just, engage with council on that as well.
Because that's a significant concern that I have, that if we approve this subdivision with
3 duplexes.
3 duplexes and 1 single family for 7 units, and then it suddenly grows to 8 units, it pretty much negates everything we've been talking about in terms of the,
Right, so I think.
So Evan, what you're saying is
I
we
think
can
what's going
call
on
it
here is the.
7-unit subdivision.
The applicants submitted definitive subdivision, but we all know that Lot 4, under zoning, qualifies as a two-family. And if they can resolve the sewer flow issues with DPW at some time in the future, if it didn't have definitive subdivision, it would likely be free and clear to be converted to. But because there's a definitive subdivision, there may be a means through that approval to either condition it or by default limit it to as it's being proposed.
could we get town council's opinion before next meeting on that, on
Yes,
options?
Yep.
And since it's 2
He was
minutes.
looking for a vote tonight, I thought. I thought we were wrapping this up tonight.
Yeah.
Oh.
In fact.
There is one other thing about the stormwater, the infiltration basin. If you can confirm, it looks like it's less than 50 feet away from a 15% slope, using the infiltration basin at least guideline. So if you can double check that you have sufficient setback from the slope, that would be great. Thank you.
I make a motion to
We need to
continue.
ship.
I'll second that
figure
motion.
out.
It may, just a point of order. I would recommend that as part of the vote to grant the continuance, that it be conditioned upon the applicant granting the extension of time to act for the board.
Okay.
Okay. 2 weeks, or what is it? Why don't we do it Friday after the next hearing?
Friday? Oh.
Yeah.
I don't want to come in on Friday.
Thank you.
How do we want to say that?
How are we gonna do
Say
that?
Yeah, we're
Repeat
making,
that again.
we're making a motion.
Make the motion.
We have a time
so
constraint, as
this-
John raised the
Yep,
question.
the statutory timelines for the board to act. And because of the extended duration and continuances and so forth,
No, I understand. Just, what do you want me to say for the motion? That's all I want to know.
Spell it out.
Like, I'm making a motion to continue to the next, to the 25th.
That's all we need to do,
yes,
is continue.
I have it in writing.
He's got the
Okay,
rest
all
of it.
right. So I made the motion,
Yeah.
okay.
You gotta articulate
Take
that
that,
whole-
sorry, I was like, okay, making a
Well,
motion to
you
the,
can include in your motion a requirement for the applicant to provide
Yeah.
the extension for the board to act.
okay, so I make a motion to the September 25th, provided that the applicant provide the board with, or grant the board a extension through
Yeah.
September 27th. Thank you.
Second.
Since there's going to be no public input, can the next meeting,
Include-
I'm
Levin Hill
really
just-
sorry, I wanted to
No, that's
apologize
quite all
about
right.
that.
No. We want to get you out of here. I'm going to be gone. Can the next meeting start with public input to this meeting?
Yeah, we haven't
versus
closed
letting
the
them-
public
Okay,
hearing.
that's all I want to ask. Thank you.
Yes.
No, like in the beginning of the meeting, not like where the fourth group down.
Right, that's, we got it.
So we wanna be the
You'll be
first
first.
Yes.
Yes.
So like, this doesn't
Let her get
potentially
out of
happen
here.
again.
Go see your daughter. They'll have a safe trip.
Yes, we'll do that.
I move to adjourn?
Second.
Wait, did we vote
Aye.
on this continuance?
I don't know.
We just
voted.
did.
No,
We didn't.
can we vote to continue this
I'll vote to
meeting?
continue the meeting.
Someone
It's
second?
moved and
Yeah,
seconded.
you said it, and I
Yes.
seconded it.
Okay, all in
Anita
favor?
moved.
Aye.
Paul seconded.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we're voting to adjourn.
Mike Walsh?
Aye.
He already
Okay.
Vote to
adjourned.
adjourn?
Second.
Bye.
Aye.
He's on vacation.
Move to adjourn by Chris, second by Mike Raisbeck. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Have a good night.
I'm awful sorry, you guys.